Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pixelists, the podcast about all the nerdy things we love and enjoy. And today we're talking Critical Role, but more importantly, we're just talking because, my man, is it just me or does it feel like it's been an eternity since we sat down to do this?
It's definitely been a while. Let's
It,
see. Our
we had like a
last
weird because Ravening War, we were doing like 3 a week for a while because of Ravening War.
bro, it's the 28th of June was the last time.
Is this like the longest we've ever had between
It's weird because
episodes?
we talk every day.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's weird. Yeah, this is the longest, maybe the longest. It's definitely been a while. Oh no, we did Wizard Witch in the Wild one. No, that was on the 30th. Just kidding. So yeah,
Mm.
it's been 2 weeks, man.
Been a while.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only other time that could maybe combat it for longest would be when I went to Iceland.
Right. That's right.
But yeah,
I think we recorded right before you left.
Yeah, we recorded like
the night before or something.
Yeah, right before like that episode aired and we recorded, and then it was the off week, so it worked out really well. So we never had to miss an ep, but it was a long time between.
Right.
But yeah, similar, like just the way the gap lined up. It was Critical Role off week. It was Wizard Witch and the Wild One off week, and Ravening War has been done for a couple weeks now, but that's also over. So yeah, it just feels like it's been a while. So it's good to be back. You know, we reunited just like the cast of Critical Role. You know,
yeah, same levels of importance for sure.
100%.
Speaking of the cast of Critical Role, if you guys didn't see, coming this upcoming October, they are doing their first live show in London, England at Wembley Arena. Tickets went on sale today, and I think I read sold out in 6 minutes.
Yeah, so I didn't clearly. We're not going. We're stateside. I mean, I would love to go, but that's not happening.
I was trying to buy a ticket though as like a giveaway, but it's sold out. So I just thought it'd be really fun to be like, "Hey guys, here's a free ticket."
Yeah.
But I couldn't get one. Like literally, like I couldn't get to the purchase page, and then I found out it was sold out in 6 minutes.
That's crazy. But I do know that that's just like they're doing it in waves, which I guess probably to combat craziness like that. So the first wave sold out, but that doesn't mean you still can't go. Those of you out there that are looking for tickets. I don't have the details because, like I said, I am not going, so I didn't look into it. But I do know that they're having 2 more sets of ticket sales.
What days it will be on. I don't want to buy a resold ticket. Okay, July 17th in 4 days.
Okay, that's the next one.
So Monday.
Yeah, dude, it's the first live show in over 3.5 years. Because they used to do them, not like frequently, obviously, but they used to, do them every once in a while. And then the pandemic happened, obviously. So hyped that they're putting that back on their radar. And I assume it's probably always going to have to be some sort of special one shot like it is here because of their recording schedule. I can't really imagine them somehow lining it up to where like a concurrent campaign 3 or 4, whatever it may be, episode would be a live show. Just because that would be weird. But I think this is a great compromise, if you will, to give us like, oh, it's the Mighty Nine coming back, maybe Vox Machina, maybe a Crown Keepers or something live show.
It is pretty interesting. We had the Mighty Nine reunited, which took place like 7 years after the Mighty Nine campaign, I think, something like that.
That's okay. I'm not confident in my own thoughts here, but because campaign 3 is roughly 7 to 10 years after campaign 2. So I thought the reunion was like shorter than that.
Yeah.
Like maybe only like a year or so after campaign.
Okay, yeah. Okay,
but I have no confidence in that. So y'all let me know.
The 7 years I'm thinking of the time between campaign 2 and 3. So this makes sense then. But yeah, so we had the Mighty Nine 2-shot this past year. And another follow on to the story, which I'm excited for since I got to be, check out that 2-shot with you, one of our guest viewers.
Shout out Ken.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm really curious about this live show. So for you guys who haven't been keeping up on it, it is the Mighty Nine. Presumably, well, not presumably, present day Mighty Nine, present day ish,
Yeah.
in that the synopsis of it, or whatever the word is, they reunite to battle an unleashed evil that has been released through the Apogee Solstice, which, if you've been following Campaign 3, the Apogee Solstice, which just happened, has undone some magical enchantments. It has loosed certain things across Exandria. I'm very curious. I didn't follow Campaign 2, so it's probably dangerous for us to try to guess what this could be, but I'm also very curious.
Yeah. Well, I think this one is going to be far more relevant to you than the last one was, because it's about the current events, like you said, and I think it
Yeah.
might even be, um, it could even be at least the first leg of it could be rescuing Bo and Caleb, because they're still MIA from being at, you know,
Yeah.
uh, ground zero, as it were.
Yeah.
So I imagine it's either something like that, like maybe they find, like, we haven't heard from Bo and Caleb, like, let's get the crew together, or they're fine and they go tell the rest of the Mighty Nine like what happened, and then um, yeah, I mean, this isn't really spoilery, but I won't go too much deeper than this. I think it's a name you and I have tossed around before, but I could see them maybe dealing with something that was unleashed because of the solstice, or more specifically, maybe dealing with Trent if he's at all at play here. Obviously, this is mainly Ludinus's thing, and I don't think Trent is like secretly a part of it, but um, maybe Trent has his own machinations for the solstice or something.
He was one of the Cerberus Assembly
Yeah,
people. Okay.
and he was
Yeah.
kind of their main of the Cerberus Assembly members. Trent was like their main antagonist.
Yeah. Well,
So
and we said that we thought it'd be really cool, which this wasn't really that insightful. It's kind of a no-brainer, but we said it'd be really cool if we could get some of these other stories of what was happening during the Apogee Solstice.
yeah,
Um, Obviously, really curious about the Crown Keepers because of Robbie Damon's character. Um, can't think of his name. Not Dariax.
Dorian.
Dorian. Thank you, Dorian Storm. Saying that Opal, things were getting really dark with her. So I know we talked about that being an option. Very excited for Mighty Nine. Maybe we could just really quickly what we think it's not going to be about. I would assume we probably wouldn't get. I'm assuming it's probably not Ukutoa, right? I mean,
No,
surely
yeah,
that'd be like rehashing
he's got
somehow.
out again.
Yeah, somehow Ukutoa returned. I did see a Reddit post where someone guessed it would be Ludinus, since Ludinus was apparently one of the main characters of Campaign 2, and this is them kind of like finally
No, he
wrapping it
wasn't.
up. He wasn't?
No.
Okay.
I mean, he
Well, that's
was
what
in it like as a passerby, but like I
that's
said,
what
Trent was the main.
that's what the Reddit post was saying, was that like, yeah, Ludinus was like the man who got away. And which to me personally, I thought, well, Ludinus has been kind of a central character to Campaign 3. It would feel a bit odd, having not seen Campaign 2, for Ludinus to be dealt with by the
Agreed.
Mighty Nine. So I was gonna loop him in with Ukutoa, and that probably not Ludinus.
I don't think so. I mean, power level wise, it makes sense, but other than that, not really. Just because Mighty Nine are such higher level than Bell's Hells. But yeah, it feels like it's Bell's Hells. It feels like it would cheapen. Like
Right.
it needs to be them, and like maybe even the Mighty Nine or whoever. Like maybe Bell's Hells probably has to get help to deal with Ludinus, and maybe Boeing they loop some Mighty Nine members in. But I can't imagine that like that battle would take place in a one shot, not even devoid of
Mm.
Campaign 3. I just feel like that they wouldn't do that.
Yeah. I'm excited to
I don't know.
see. I mean, I'm also interested to see if we get like a Vox Machina story, knowing that Keyleth and
Vax.
Vax have Vax or Vax? Vax, right?
Vax. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
have
Vax.
were immediately important in the Apogee Solstice. But we've also seen some other Vox Machina characters. Yeah, I'm very curious. Very
Yeah, me
excited.
too. I mean, I think it's on the table for sure. So,
Yeah. Okay.
and live shows are back. Our friends across the pond are getting this one. I'm jealous. But I think that like home turf is over here in the States. So I got to imagine there's plans for a live show over here too. Now, maybe it won't be till next year or something, but I think that's definitely on the table. And like I mentioned, it's going to have to be a not main campaign thing. So, and I don't think they'll just do something completely like random. So I could totally see it being a Vox Machina thing, but they also kind of have closed the curtains on Vox Machina a bit, so I could see it being, Crown Keepers or EXU Calamity 2 or something,
Yeah.
I don't think it would be
Yeah.
Calamity 2, but you get the point. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So
I'm excited, man.
I do need more Brennan Lee Mulligan in my life.
Same.
So
Same. And this is something that I had like told myself years ago, but then again, pandemic happened. Next time there is a live show like that's like feasible for me to get to, I definitely want to go. So now that I've looped you into this whole madness, you're coming with me. So just know that that's happening next time that's announced. And hey, you know what? If we have enough, people in our community by then, maybe we can have a little meetup.
Oh, that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah.
A little dinner before the show kind of thing.
Yeah. You
Maybe
paying?
like no. No, that would be cool. It'd be cool to hang out with everybody. And like I said, I'm gonna see if I can try to get a ticket for the Wembley Arena one, and we can
Yeah.
do. I think I saw they were about $100. And so it'd be fun maybe to do like a little giveaway on the channel. But no promises, guys. I'll do the best I can. But if you live in that area, obviously we'd ask that you'd actually go to the show and not just like try to resell it.
Scalp it. Yeah.
It's like those idiots at Pixelists got me a ticket. So anywho, well, hey, lots of fun stuff. One other quick announcement. Diablo season 1 is coming out a week from today. Are you playing, by the way? We didn't really talk about it.
Wait, sorry, when does he start?
A week from today.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I plan to. I haven't actually logged on in a couple of weeks, just because I've been busy with so much other stuff. But I've been waiting for season 1. So
yeah, yeah. I'd say the news around season 1 has been a bit mid. It's not been super exciting. However, we are going to try it out, check it out. We'll have some more Diablo content for that as well. So if you like that kind of content, you can check it out. And then also my man Will, who is the master of breakdowns, just put out a video on an anime, Jujutsu Kaisen. Did I say it right?
Nailed it.
Look at me, dude. I have no idea what the show is, by the way. But it's actually a really freaking awesome breakdown. So definitely check that out. It's on our channel. Remember, we're the Pixelists. It's all the nerdy things we love and enjoy. So I don't know if it's like the best YouTube strategy to have all these different pieces of content, but we made this channel because it's fun for us. And so if you want to check that out, that video is up as well. Like I said, Will did a really great job with it. So
appreciate that, man. And not to cut you off if you were still going.
I'm done. Yeah.
Was gonna finally plug our Discord one more time. Right. So if you're not there, come hang out with us. It is Thursday as we're recording this, so we do have a new Critical Role episode tonight, meaning there will be a watch party going on tonight. So if you haven't checked out one of those yet, it's always a good time. We got great people that come through and chat with us for the episodes, and would love to have you join us. So open invite there. And it's more than like we just talked about. We cover lots of things. So the Discord, come in and talk about anything you want. We got channels for most stuff, but yeah.
Okay. My screen's gonna go gray for a second because I'm just
went black and white.
I'm just gonna get the here we go, one sec.
Just so I can red one. There you go.
Record the
you're muted now.
I'm muted?
Oh, you're back.
Oh, okay.
Maybe you never were. I thought I saw your lips move and I didn't hear anything, so I was panicking, but yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
All right. And without further ado, let's actually launch into it. And you guys know the drill. We're going to start out with our recap.
Sorry, hang on. my mic's actually not working, so I need a second here. Just everyone hold on for one moment. Okay, we're good now.
You good? All right.
And go.
Boom. I'm actually going to start over. We're going to, you guys know the drill. This is natural. We're going to launch into our recap, which we cut out of the podcast and host separately on YouTube for your viewing convenience. So if you find yourself just on that recap video and want to hear our full thoughts and discussion, it'll be linked in the description box below. But without further ado, let's dive into episode 64 of Campaign 3, Reunited. So, we pick back up this time with Team Wildmount, who, if you remember when we last left them a couple months ago, the last thing they had done was just attempt to teleport from Laesmere to Drusar. And I do say attempted because this does not go well. If you'll recall, Laura had to roll a D100 when she tried to teleport, and we were left on the cliffhanger of her reacting to that roll. Presumably it was bad, and we find out that it was bad. So in this attempted teleport, everyone takes a chunk of force damage, and they basically are still caught in the liminal space between spaces. They're like still within the teleport. So she rolls again, and again rolls low. So they take even more force damage and are still stuck. So she then rolls a third time, this time with guidance from Deanna, and they are pulled through the ether and eventually plopped out into Exandria. Except they're not in Drusar. They're on the edge of this cliff and notice that there's this wave of Arakoa flying at them. Or excuse me, Eusphora? Is that what they call it?
Aesfra, I think.
Aesphora, thank you.
Yeah.
I might just say Arakoa because you
Yeah.
get it, bird people.
Yeah.
So they're flying at them with spears and armor, and the party's like, "Whoa, we come in peace, we come in peace." But they swoop down, throw nets over the party, and entangle basically everybody but Chetney and F.C.G. And then what follows is basically some pleading and some explaining with more bad rolls from Imogen, with them basically saying, you know, it's an accident that we're here, like we're just trying to leave. And what basically happens is the Arakoa decide to blindfold the party and fly them away from here so that they don't, the blindfolds so that they don't know where they are, because they're very hush hush about this place. They don't want outsiders here and they don't want anybody to know where they are. So the party agrees to those circumstances, get blindfolded, and get flown away and dropped off at the bottom of the mountain in a forest. So after all of this and during all that kind of chaos, F.C.G has reached the brink of going, you know, seeing red, going berserk. And there is a couple of calm emotion spells that are thrown off to kind of keep this at bay, and they're successful in doing that. But once they've now landed at the forest and the bird people have left, FCG is like, I got to go into stasis, basically. And they can't teleport again because the staff that Imogen is using has charges, and she does not have enough after failing earlier. So they're like, okay, let's just, you know, sleep here, camp here, and try to teleport again in the morning. One interesting thing though is FCG, or excuse me, Frida kisses FCG, and this actually removes his 2 stress points. So
Right.
the immediate threat is dissipated regardless. So the party rests here, and the only thing that really happens this night, even though it's not night, is Frida detect thoughts, or uses detect thoughts on FCG's sleeping body. And what he picks up is this intent, this rage, and this intent to kill and destroy and cleanse. And the only other images between that rage that Frida picks up are flashes of someone building FCG. And the delicate craftsmanship that has gone into it, and just this intent burning within FCG for this rage. But Frida isn't sure if this is programming or if this was like a virus. So morning comes, they attempt to teleport again. This time Imogen rolls a 53. And so they're ripped through space and time, and they actually arrive in Drusar safely. But it is the middle of the night here due to the time zone change. The first thing they noticed are that the magical lights here are diminished, similar to Uthadern, and they can tell that the solstice had its effect here as well. And they're trying to decide where to go. So Deanna actually casts Scry on Laudna to see if they can see where they are, and it is successful. And she sees that Laudna is in a cave of some sort, but that she's okay. So Imogen then tries to sending spell to Laudna, but is unsuccessful. So they then decide, let's go talk to Pretty at the Sentence Well and see if, the rest of Bell's Hills have been by, if he has any information. So they head there. Pretty is fetched for them, and Pretty basically catches them up on the things that have been going around. There were, celebrations for the solstice, but since then things have been a little off, a little weird. The moon's been acting up, and now half the gondolas in the city have stopped working, and a bunch of armies have arrived in city, and he hasn't heard from the rest of Bell's Hells. So the party leaves, and they can tell there's lots of soldiers about in town from all sorts of militaries, not just Drusar, and the skyport full of ships. So as they head to the core spire, they realize the gondola here is down, like Pretty said, and there's a long line of people basically waiting to get sent over the gap on a small floating platform that's kind of being run by the city. So they're like, we don't want to wait in this line. So they kind of cut ahead and show the credentials from the king and queen of Uthadern, like saying that, hey, we have important business to discuss in the core spire. Like, we need to go first. This works. So they are allowed to cut the line, and they all get on this disc, which is called a broom skipper. But Fern has to polymorph into a raccoon dog in order so they can all fit. But they all get on, get to the other side, and decide to head to the Spire by Fire next. Once inside, the Qatari owner of the establishment recognizes them, tells them, I have not seen your friends either. So they decide, well, let's just settle in, get some breakfast, and figure out what our next move is. And as they're doing that, a lot of soldiers come into the tavern, and the Qatari owner tells them that, yeah, most of the inn has been kind of taken over as a temporary barracks. Um, and Frida recognizes some of these soldiers again are being represented from all over, including the Clovis Concord and the Council of Taldore. Um, and so they're just trying to figure out, okay, like what exactly is going on? What's the response here? But meanwhile, Imogen tries another sending spell, this time to Zidana, and it works. And so she asks, like, have you heard from Laudna and are you okay? And Zidana's fine, but she hasn't heard from Laudna. So Chetney goes over to the table of soldiers and tries to get some information out of them, says, like, hey, like, who's coordinating the efforts? Like, how can we help? And they said, we're just following orders. We got here a couple days ago. A warder then comes by and tells Chetney, like, hey, go speak to the quorum if you're looking for information. Like, we're here on military business. Like, these people can't answer your questions. Um, so at this point, Fern, who is still polymorphed, goes over to another table to eavesdrop. And there's this half orc soldier that's telling his comrades that, like, hey, I know it's strange here, but just follow orders, watch each other's backs. We're going to be marching soon. And as the party is settling in, getting their breakfast, we cut to elsewhere in the city where a tree begins to glow and open. And that's where we go to break for the first half.
Yeah, great job, man. Yeah, so coming back from the break, we find the party of AOL, Team AOL from Asilra arrives in Drusar through this portal opening up in the Lucent Spire in a public park. And if you remember, the Lucent Spire is kind of like the bougie, noble-esque spire of Drusar. And the party emerges from it. Prism a bit surprised. Hey, you're here. Again, picking up on that last episode, Prism not realizing they were going to the same place. They make some small talk about like, oh, so this is Dressar, and kind of talking about like what to do next. They know they want to get more information about what's been going on, specifically Predathos, and they float the idea of actually going to the Starpoint Conservatory, which, if you remember way back early in Campaign 3, this is where Imogen and Laudna were originally trying to get into to learn more about Imogen's powers, and also where they found out about the study about Imogen's mom and the red dreams people were having. Orem points out that, hey, we barely found out about Predathos from like some heavily redacted documents that people were on the run with. I don't know if we're going to find out more there about Predathos. But even so, Prism is really excited about the idea of finding some banned books. And more importantly, talks about this persona moving forward of just basically, hey, if I lie and say I'm a high-ranking mage of the Cobalt Soul, will you guys all play along with me? And Ashton's like, yeah, just make sure you don't start with the fact that you're lying. Just try to own it, okay? And there's also some funny dialogue around like, what's the training like at the Cobalt Soul? And Prism does reveal that she has an 8-pack, apparently, which I think Emily Axford is sticking to. This is canon now for Prism. The party then decides, okay, well, where should we go? And Orem basically says, hey, if our friends are here, they would be at the core spire, at the Spire by Fire. So let's head that direction. They head to one of the gondolas. This one is still working. And as they arrive on the gondola, they not only can see the distant red beam of Ruidus, that's sort of like held in the distance, and like I think Matt describes a like permanent flaring state of it as well. But there is a, I think it was like a small goblin who gets on the gondola with them, or maybe
Yeah.
it was a gnome. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it was a gnome,
Uh,
yeah.
who is a courier of some kind, and the person's kind of minding their own business, and they want to kind of like figure out like what's going on in town. So Laudna, in very creepy Laudna ways, sits right next to him and is like, "Hey, like what's going on here? Like what's been happening?" Totally freaks this person out. Somebody casts friends on the courier, but fails. And Orem is really, you know, typical Orem dad is really kind of trying to like, guys, just be normal. Like, let's stop freaking out this guy. They don't get much information other than the fact that a lot of strange things have been happening. People are a bit restless. It's not unlike some of the chatter we got from Uthadern. And I don't remember if we found it out from this person directly, but we also find it at some point that, as we found out in Uthadern, that teleportation circles are not working, certain enchantments are not working, though teleportation magic does seem to work. They arrive at the core spire. The courier runs away. Prism sends, I think, either Mother or Danios to chase after to figure out, like, who is this person really? And Matt's like, it's a courier. Like, please leave him alone. The party makes their way to the Spire by Fire. They do note the massive military presence. Will mentioned how the skyport was filled up with sky ships. I think the mention was that even like the nearby mountainside was covered with like parked, with docked sky ships as well. And they spot a number of different, not nationalities, forces represented here.
Yeah.
Not just from Vasselheim, but they also see the insignias of the Council of Taldore, and then they also see an insignia of the Changebringer as well. They note this and head into the Spire by Fire, where they are gleefully reunited with Team Wildmount. It's very satisfying. It becomes a very large table with 10 people
Yes.
all huddled together, lots of hugs. And just skipping through some of the longer portions, there's a lot in this section of what happened to you?
Mhm.
You know, and then I think friends like, we had a threesome, and they're like, oh, okay. And then you know, we had someone from the Ruby Vanguard who tried to kill us. And so this is a good chunk of conversation. But more importantly, there's a lot of introductions, a lot of swapping notes, and the party essentially decides, okay, I think we should get back to Marquette. We should get back to that excavation site. Clearly, something's happening there. Deanna, meanwhile, is going to sneak away and cast communion because she wants to talk to the Dawnfather and figure out what should our next move be. Remember in the previous episode with her team, the Dawnfather had charged her with, hey, you must go stop what's happening, and seemed to imply, or you're going to lose like your gift of resurrection that when I brought you back to life. So she casts communion. She sees sort of like this visage of the Dawnfather, and she asks 3 questions. The first one being, essentially, are Bell's Hells trustworthy? Like, are they more dangerous than they are helpful? And the Dawnfather doesn't give an answer. It seems like the future's a bit uncertain there. She also asks about the Dawnfather's followers, and specifically, like, are your people doing religious colonialism? I guess I don't know what to call it, because she had been told the story of the town that the Isilra team had to basically save
Yeah.
from the Dawnfather temple, essentially.
Hearthdale, yeah.
Hearthdale, thank you. And the Dawnfather basically gives kind of the cliche, like, you know, my followers do what must be done. And then Deanna says, final question, are you worth saving? Which makes the Dawnfather so angry that he just thrusts her out of the communion spell, much to Deanna's dismay. It's also around this time as they're swapping notes that there's conversation around Hearthdale and it being a nexus point, and specifically how many nexus points are there around Exandria. And Matt explains that although the Apogee Solstice moves them and sometimes creates new ones and we lose old ones, that best guess is that across Exandria, there are 23 Nexus points. And then lastly, the party is essentially talking about what do we do next. And this is kind of like some conversation around, it's like the story reasons to sort of exit Deanna, Frida, and Prism from the show, for at least in the short term.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically decide, if we're going to do this well, if we're going to get back to Marquette and stop lewdness, we need more information. So Deanna, Frida, and Prism agreed to kind of go together and possibly go to Vasselheim and try to get more information on all these things that have been happening so they can be kind of like a source of info to feed to Bell's Hells. There's a great moment of F.C.G being like, well, I'm going with Frida, obviously. And Frida being like, no, like you have to stay here. And then F.C.G is like, well, you can come with us then. And it was just really great, like back and forth of like, even though these actors have to move on, of course the characters would want them there.
Yeah.
So they do ultimately, F.C.G agrees to stay with Bell's Hells, and Frida will depart and see them soon. Though F.C.G is suspicious of Prism, mostly because Prism has a bird as a companion, which they don't very much appreciate. One last thing that does happen as we're wrapping up our recap, Deanna is asked by Orem, as they're talking about the different insignias that they saw of like the different armies. Orem asks Deanna, hey, can you check in on a friend of mine? Can you check in on Keyleth? And pulls out the, which I love that this came back because I thought it was totally discarded. The messaging seed that he had been gifted. This was all the way back from EXU season 1, but it had sort of wilted after the message from Keyleth had gone through. He presents it to Deanna and says, hey, can you scry on Keyleth for me? And Deanna does scry and essentially sees Keyleth in her chambers back in Zephyra, hobbled and recovering from her injuries, and notes that despite it having been a couple of weeks, her slashes still appear to be extremely fresh. And there are aides around her who are pretty much like, you have to rest, you have to save your strength. And all that to say, that is essentially what happens in this episode 64 of Campaign 3 of Critical Role Reunited. And don't forget, if you're checking out just our recap, you can see our whole discussion. We want to know your thoughts as well. Click the link in the description and you can jump into our dialogue.
Bada boom, bada bing. Well done, man.
Man, you know what's so funny about doing these recaps is like sometimes when I'm getting my notes together, I'm like, pretty much nothing happened. There's not much to say. And then you're like, all right, I've been talking for 10 minutes now, and I feel like I still skipped some things. So
that's how it goes, man.
It's just the way it is.
No. But bro, Reunited, man. It was good to see everybody back, man. That's the fullest the table has ever been. They fit 10 people in there. This was just a really fun episode. It was just, I don't know, like we're in the middle of a dark arc, if we can call it that. But this was like a nice, warm, fuzzy. The fam's back together. I don't know. It's just a nice little, like, I don't know the word I'm looking for. Like palate cleanser. That doesn't really feel right, but it's just nice.
Sure.
You know?
Palate cleanser makes it feel like the previous stuff wasn't good. Like we needed to like cleanse it out. It was great, but this was a nice little upbeat before a potential downturn.
Right.
In what comes next. Because like I want to talk about what Bell's Hells is going to do. But before we get into that, like you said, it was nice to have everyone back. 13 episodes is how long the party was. They were gone. Yeah. Dang. So, which doesn't seem like much, but again, you're only getting 3 episodes a month. So we're talking
like almost 4 months.
Yeah, almost 4 months.
Third of a year. Yeah, that's crazy.
We just like keep doing like math. A quarter. So,
but yeah, like, yeah, it was just so good.
And it's not a quarter. I already ruined the joke.
I was just gonna move past it.
I said it, then I started thinking. I was like, "Am I an idiot?" I am. Oh man.
Good times.
Oh man.
But yeah, man, and I'm trying to decide what I want to talk about first. I guess, like we just said, great to have everybody back together. I'm excited for this episode because I think kind of the chaos, the beautiful chaos of 10
Yeah.
people at a table. We didn't get to truly have like the reunion moments of like Laudna
Yes.
and Imogen, and like Laudna telling Imogen what like she really went
Yeah.
through. And
Yeah.
just the moments between all the different pairings that we want that from. Um, so I'm excited to potentially get some of that tonight. Um, but yeah, it was just I also want to talk about just the chaos of 10 at the table, which I thought was handled so well. So maybe I'll just get that out of the way. But it was just so fun to see. And basically once that happened, Matt didn't say much for the rest of the episode, basically. He just kind of let them go at it, which thank God they didn't have to do combat with 10 people. That'd have been
Matt,
crazy.
Matt knew better.
Yeah. um but yeah, it was just so much fun. And it was even with 10 people, I thought they did a really good job of still maintaining the spotlight, if you will.
Yeah,
And that's
sharing
not
the
to
space.
yeah, that's a better way to put it. They did a good job of sharing the space because not that everyone got equal time because they definitely didn't, but I just thought they were pretty good about that, even with all the people that were there. But that being said, I did notice a lot of specifically Ashton. Kind of, I felt like Taliesin had a few times where he wanted to say something and didn't get the chance to. Um, and then the last thing I want to point out about this is just I love Christian, man. I noticed it. I don't know why I kind of focused on him, but I noticed that for that first chunk, like Frida didn't say a word, and it was somebody else that eventually had to like bring Frida into it, and I can't remember who it was. If it was, it doesn't matter. But I just applaud Christian's like patience and like
Mhm.
I can't. I'm not in his mind. I don't know why he was doing it, but it felt like a deferential like let them talk. And so I love that like again, I don't remember
Yeah.
who it was, if it was Liam or whoever, but somebody noticed that and like ushered Christian back into the spotlight. So just
That's why these people are the best, man.
yeah,
You
no,
know? I
I
almost
like
and I
that.
was actually I mean, it makes sense. I was actually sad we didn't have Opal there or Opal, Amy Carrero.
Yeah, but
Like
what if
I
Opal and
wanted her
Ukarsh were there as well?
there. I definitely would have wanted Denise there. Just because she played such a fun character. But yeah, that's a great insight on your part for sure. And these guest characters were tremendous. They were really great.
So much fun.
I think this whole campaign has had really great guest characters. Um, the party's done a great job of inviting them in. As a random thing, I love how Frida, one of their last lines was FGG when FGG was smoking, and Frida's like saying goodbye, and then Frida's like, um, and stop smoking. It's unattractive. And it's just like perfect, like couple, like
Yeah.
squabbling isn't the right word, but it was such a cute little detail that I
Yeah.
thought was great. But I'll miss these. It's funny how like you get used to these people and then they move on, and you're just like, it feels like such a void. So like
Yeah.
when Robbie left, it really was tough for me. But
Yeah. 100%. And I think we could see them again potentially. Not that we definitely will or anything, but I think that's definitely on the table. For at least maybe one of them or something to show up. But I like that I'm trying to decide if all right, so I'm not past campaigns aside, it really feels like this campaign especially kind of is leaving the door open with guest characters. Because there's precedent in previous campaigns for the same guest to have come back, but specifically here, I feel like there's lots of open threads still with guest
mm,
characters that don't doesn't necessitate they have to come back to get those figured out, but just even that they exist, period, is interesting to me compared to previous campaigns. Obviously, Dorian's a huge one, but even just with these characters, I love that we've got the whole Denise Dariax connection. I want to talk specifically a bit more about Prism, so I'm going to hold off on that for now. But then with Frida, we still have this kind of big mystery box, if you will, of his vision and that child from Aor that we didn't get
right.
an answer on. And again, I'm not saying we have to. We might not ever, but I just think it's interesting that there are those things this campaign that would make a lot of sense if they did come back to kind of flesh that out more.
Or it could be like an EXU Kaimal situation.
Yeah, yeah.
The characters have moved on, and here's like a 2-shot or a 3-shot that covers. I guess Kaimal was 4 sessions, I think.
That was only 2, I think.
It was only 2.
Kaimal, yeah.
I guess I'm thinking of Calamity.
Yeah.
Since Calamity was 4, but yeah, maybe we get like a 2-shot that like follows up with some stuff from them.
Yeah, maybe even following, what was their name they gave themselves? The 3 of them were like the Lorsonists or something like that.
I don't remember.
But like maybe we can get like an EXU with Emily, Christian, and Abria, and then whoever else. That would be really fun.
Yeah. No, that would be really good. So, okay, well let's jump into like what's going on. It's good to be home. It's good to be home in Dressar. I was half expecting something wild to have happened to Dressar, like one of the spires had fallen over or something. I don't know. I know you were really big on the Dressar getting lifted into the sky theory. But yeah, it seems to be a major staging point. We have armies from all over Exandria who are here, who I think, if I understand correctly, they're literally like the day before or hours before marching off to the excavation site in Marquette, I think was what was said. Like they're on the cusp of that.
Yeah.
What's your take on what exactly is happening here?
That's a good question, because I'm not entirely sure. I mean, clearly the obvious answer is the powers that be know that something crazy is happening, and so they're sending a response. But I'm curious what exactly they know. But I mean, enough, because again, they're sending armies to. I guess this is kind of like a nearby hub, which is why they're all kind of like congregating here and then setting off. But knowing what we know, and this is a whole nother conversation really of what exactly in magic is working versus not, because like scries work, some teleport works, but sending spells are really finicky. And so I just wonder what information has traveled. And I guess there are other means, and especially when you get to like the most powerful people in the planet, they're probably going to have ways to communicate still. But yeah, I guess I'm rambling, but I guess I'm just curious, like, what actually does everyone know? And to what extent? But whatever that answer is, it's clearly enough to warrant sending the armies out. So I don't even know if I'm answering your question. I guess I don't know what's going on, but clearly they know something's. And I know I'm rambling like crazy, but I guess we also did have the gods' call to action. So maybe it's even possible that the powers that be literally spoke to deities, just like F.C.G. and Deanna did, and that's maybe a big reason for it as well.
Yeah, we've talked about. It's been a while since we've talked about this, but we talked about the original assault at the excavation site. How if the excavation site is filled with Ruidusborn, like Bell's Hells is screwed,
Right.
and there has to be some outsiders who's going to help. We didn't know it at the time, but we ended up getting Bo and Caleb,
Right.
and Keyleth as well, and the Nightmare King. Some really massive forces that showed up to help. I would say that something similar is kind of true in that if they're going back to the excavation site, there has to, I would assume, be, again, they're only level 10. They've gained a level since that last encounter. Maybe I think just one level. I don't think they were level 8 back then.
I don't think so.
So they're level 10. A big advancement, obviously, but now they potentially might have these armies that could be involved as well in some massive battle. The only difference is that it seems like Imogen confirmed that. Excuse me. It seemed like Imogen confirmed that this red beam, these figures coming from, or these what appeared to be characters coming from Ruidus. I think the actual line was something like maybe Ray Laura, which we had guessed is this Ray Laura sort of like, pew, coming down from Ruidus. And I think Imogen said something about that. Like, I think it's Ray Laura arriving or something. And then further, we did get confirmation, which maybe we already did before, on her psionic elemental lore wise being, I think, a Ray Laura or
Mhm.
something, or like a Ray Laura.
Yeah.
All this to say, now that I'm rambling, going back to the excavation site, that is seemingly, in addition to, I guess, Ludinus and Co., will also have some Ray Laura present as well.
Yeah, which I think I don't remember when it was, but shortly after the event, didn't Imogen try to scry or something on somebody, and her vision got pulled to like the excavation site instead, and she could see
She
a
could
bunch of Ray Laura.
see, yeah. Well, I don't know if she said it, but she said she could see like red figures or
Okay.
something. So I think it was heavily implied. But I
Right.
think
Okay.
here, maybe she said it back then too. I don't know. But all that to say, and now there's Ray Laura there.
Yeah.
Though we don't know if all of Ludinus's army is there, since Border got, ported
Yeah.
away.
Yeah. Everybody
Maybe
got
some other,
shunted. Yeah.
I mean, who knows? But I, I guess I was surprised that they're going straight. I mean, I don't know where else they would go. Like from like a DM perspective, like they don't really have any other threads to pull on. So I guess it only makes sense. Like we're going back. But I was also a bit surprised of like, I'm nervous. Like, are you guys sure you don't want to go to like a magic shop or something first, or
Yeah.
like does something else need to happen first? But I don't know.
Well, yeah. Well, did I can't remember I can't remember exactly how the episode ended now, but did they say like that's what they were doing next?
Yeah, I think so. I think they said they were going there next. Uh, because I think the actual like dialogue, I think Prism, Deanna, and Frida are maybe going to stop by the Starpoint Conservatory first. I can't remember. And then I think the dialogue was F.C.G. was like, well, I don't want to leave Frida. And I think Orem spoke up and was like, hey, like, if we don't get back to the excavation site, like, there won't be, like, we won't have loved ones to take care of anymore. Like, we have to,
Right.
like, that's where we have to go. So the implication I got was like, we're going, like,
Yeah.
first thing tomorrow, like, we're on our way. So,
Well,
which they don't
that's
have a skyship anymore. So,
true. Well, that's clearly where all the armies are going because that's ground zero.
right.
So I guess if they maybe they could hop aboard with one of them if they needed a way. Imogen does have teleportation now, so they could just do that. Um,
Oh, yeah. Good
but
point.
I could see them. I mean, I think they'll definitely like you made the joke about like hitting up a magic shop. I think there definitely will be like at the very least some Drusar stops before they go anywhere. I hope they go to the Trove of Marwa again because I would love to just that was just a fun character and a fun place. And plus, I mean, I think they've got a decent chunk of gold. And it
Mhm.
seems like before the big fight, you go stock up. So I would be surprised if they didn't do any type of shopping. But yeah, that's one thing I was wondering is what is their next immediate move, but I guess it is just to go back. The only other lead they have really are to talk to allies or recruit allies in some form or fashion or go like to Ludinus's hometown or something, but that doesn't even seem to be like on the map as something that is like it seems like time is more pressing than that. So yeah.
I have to imagine they will end up back in Asilra at some point because of that detail on Ludinus's hometown. But separately, there's this angle of the primordial that was in Ludinus's notes, which I'm really
Hmm.
curious about. But beyond all of that, yeah, I could see them stopping by Mistress Shishadri. Was she the quorum
Yeah, or Lana
person?
or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sasandri.
Shishadri. Yeah. Maybe stopping by there and like, hey, things are good. I honestly also wonder like I mean, probably not important at all, but like what's happened to Armand Tresci? Like, is he in a jail cell somewhere or, and where's the Nightmare King also?
Yeah.
Cause wasn't the Nightmare King bamfed away or something or like
I
back to
guess
the
we
Fae
don't
or,
know what happened to him. The last we saw, he was helping destroy the like power sources around, right?
yeah.
Oh, wait.
No,
No,
he
you're
got
right.
bamfed
You're right.
from,
Yeah, Ludinus or no, her mom, right?
yeah, Imogen's mom
She
bamfed him away.
yeah, so he's I guess he would have gone to whatever his home plane is.
I think it was said he was bamfed to the Feywild.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, um, yeah, I would love if be it Sasadri, which makes the most sense, or just I mean, I guess we still don't know who's on the quorum because it's an anonymous council, but go check in with the powers that be in Drusar just to see like what they know, what's going on here. We know the lights have dimmed and some of the gondolas have gone out. And clearly nothing like catastrophic has happened like you alluded to earlier, like there wasn't a spire missing or something, but I am curious like kind of what like it could be, you know, fires everywhere like metaphorically. And I don't know, I would just love to get those details kind of similar to kind of the
Mm.
slice of life we got via Uthadern with like the temples closing and the you know
Yeah.
um but yeah, I definitely think back to what you were saying is that they might end up in Asilra at some point. Because we also have the whole Ashton Hishari stuff, which we kind of got the answers there. So like the progression of that plot thread might not be in Asilra necessarily. Um, but I could see, Ashton wanting to go investigate the actual location of
Well, they're heading back to see Ashton's dad. So
little F Terran action if he's still alive.
he's at the excavation site. He's the one who
He's
you know
Ludinus.
you know this theory.
Yeah, I do not subscribe to the Ludinus
I
F Terran
I do not either.
theory.
But some of you guys are really excited about it if it's true, which hey, we have some crazy predictions on this podcast, so
Yeah,
I wouldn't fault you for it.
that's right.
So it turns out to be true and we're like, we said it
We
here.
called it.
Yeah.
It's like a really poorly edited clip of us being
Yeah.
like, F Terran is
Yeah.
Ludinus.
Yeah. So yeah, okay. So could go to the quorum. Could I guess can they teleport everyone with her staff?
There's a limit, but I think at least I would imagine she can at least do Bell's Hells. I think it's usually
Yeah, okay.
like 8 or so is around about what the
Okay. I guess
limit
they could
is.
also Shishadri might even be willing to let them borrow a skyport. I mean, a skyport, a skyship. Though they all seem to be. It wasn't clear if the skyships were like the armies that had arrived, or if it's like one of those things, like old military stories, where like the military like commandeer like all the ships and the vessels and
Yeah.
things. But that could be one option as well.
Yeah, for sure. I would imagine most likely they'll teleport just for terms like because time is of the essence, you know? So I don't know why they wouldn't unless they were worried about magic being all wonky, but clearly it's worked well enough. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I just kind of while we're here, real quick, talking about the different armies, I thought it was cool that we got the Council of Tal'Dorei mention. Y'all know what that is. The Clovis Concord was another one that was mentioned, and that's like the Menagerie Coast area of the world, which was big in campaign 2. And I think there was a third one explicitly mentioned, but now I can't remember what it was.
Let me see.
I think you mentioned it in your half of the recap.
No, I talked about the Chainbringer.
Oh,
Chainbringer's
that's what it was.
armies
That's what it
being
was.
present.
Yeah. So
So
never mind. But yeah, and we already talked about it, so I don't want to retread here. But it's just like things have gotten rolling very quick, coming from in Uthadern, no one knowing in Uthadern what was going on to now, however many days later. The timeline's kind of wonky, but
I
however
think
many
it's been
days later, like everyone knows what's going on.
I think it's been at least 2 weeks. I think.
Okay,
Yeah,
which
I'm pretty confident.
there is a. I don't know if this is worth like spending too much time on, but I know one like subject of discussion that we were even talking about a bit in the Discord is, and I might get things flipped here, so y'all forgive me, but the timelines of the two different groups did not line up at all. And the group, I think it was Imogen's group, Team Wildmount, actually finished. Again, okay, I'm going to mix it up because I don't remember. But I think it was Imogen's group. One finished like way earlier than the other, or way later than the other. And so it doesn't really make sense how the timing of them both showing up in Drusar. But it's one of those things that like hand wave it away is fine. But I know some people were speculating that maybe in Imogen's like botched teleport, they like went back in time a few days or something. Which I guess there are ways to like if like you really wanted to like explain it, you could be something like that. But for my money, it's just going to be something that's never even mentioned.
Yeah, I don't think it's even worth really thinking about, honestly. I mean, I will say Imogen, their timeline does seem like it was much longer because they traveled. It was at least a few days to get to Uthadern, and then to make it to Malesmere, I think it was like a 7 to 10 day journey or something. Whereas with Team Asilra AOL, they arrived in Hearthdale, and then traveled immediately to uh, the Hierophant's place,
Yeah. Hevestro.
Avestro's place. So yeah, I don't really worry much about it myself. Though I do think it's interesting if the teleportation, which they even had an extra day because remember she messed up the teleport, which put them on this mountainside with all the Aesfra, and then they had to wait an entire day to cast teleport again. So,
Right. Right.
but speaking of the Aesfra, though, could this be a little theory that I like? Is maybe this is
Volantim?
where what?
Or
What did you say?
Volantim?
I don't know what Volantum is.
Oh, I thought I was gonna have to throw this by you, but I thought you were about to throw it by me. Go, keep going.
No, I was gonna say, could this be where Sarah and his family
Oh,
like ran off to? It's seemingly like in this isolated place in the mountains in Wildmount. Like maybe Sarah fought the good fight, and then this is where him and his people sort of like found a home.
yeah. So that was gonna be part of what I shared with you. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm like shipping that, but I definitely think that's plausible and on the table. But I think specifically, and this doesn't preclude what you just said, but there's like a specific place that I think this could be. It's called Volantim, and it's never been on screen. It's just from like what we know of the world lore, and it's an Arakoa civilization that's like hidden from the world. Like they don't want anybody to know where they are, who they are. Um, a lot of the details line up, so it seems like it probably is, which I thought was just cool from Matt. And then yeah, I was wondering the same thing. Like, could this potentially be Saret's descendants? And maybe that's one of
Definitely
the
not
reasons they're
that. That's
so.
definitely what I said for sure. So,
Yeah.
knowing nothing about your thing.
They
Yeah.
go together.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
yeah, I just thought it was cool. Even if it's not the Saret thing, it's still cool, but really cool if it is, because it doesn't have to be by any means, but that could be an interesting explanation for the secrecy. Is like if it was at all founded by him or his ideologies or something, and not trusting the rest of the world. You know,
Mhm. Mhm.
um, but yeah,
Yeah,
I thought that was just a really cool little moment from Matt to and again, we don't even know that that's what it is, but
right.
uh it's just cool little world building glimpse
Yeah,
in a botched teleport, which again just makes the place feel alive.
a big world. That's right.
Yeah.
Moving on from here, another part of the world we got to see was Keyleth and Zephyra,
Yeah.
um, seemingly still deeply wounded from these attacks from Otahan Thul, who, as we know, has a special poison to her weapons, perhaps a dunamantic poison of some kind. And so we've got confirmation that she escaped from the excavation site. We don't know what happened to Vax, if he's still within the large Malleus Key. But yeah, she is seemingly recovering and still deeply injured. We also know it's not the first time we've seen this, by the way. The bodyguard to the Loomis twins. I can't think of his name.
The anger.
The anger, yeah. When they first
Yeah.
arrived in Drusar, it took a while to meet him because it took so long for him to be able to recover as well. So kind of a cool detail, but I didn't know if you had any kind of thoughts on seeing Keyleth or your reaction.
I mean, I was glad she's okay. That was my main thought. But yeah, sucks that she's still hurt, and it makes me like you just mentioned, we saw it with Ashad Reggio, I think was his name. Is she permanently injured in some way, which would be really unfortunate. But it's been, like you mentioned, at least a week or two since she would have been injured, and she's still really not looking good. But yeah, mainly just glad she's alive. I do think Vax is probably still in the key because, I mean, to my understanding, the key is like constantly doing whatever it's doing, and Vax seems to be like an integral part of it
Mm.
functioning. So I would imagine he's still in there. But yeah, we talked about it at the beginning of the episode. But I'm curious if, not that we'll get a live show or a one shot at all, but I'm curious if Keyleth is going to go recruit the troops to not save Vax necessarily. I mean, I don't even know if he. I don't want to get into spoiler territories for campaign 1, but clearly, like,
Surely she
just
called
yeah.
Vox Machina, right?
I would think that she called everyone she could, given the severity of the situation. So
Yeah, we're gonna get a one shot with him, I'm sure.
that'd be cool.
I can't wait to see Scanlan again.
That'd be cool.
Anyway, yeah, for me the injury is at least Matt signaling like we're not going to see Keyleth showing up at the excavation site, or maybe we
Yeah, that's a
could.
good point.
I mean, we may be able to. I mean, it would. I don't think it's far fetched for, like, despite her injuries, like for the sake of Vax to like get back in there. But I do think it is a subtle signal from the DM, like this option is not a current option.
Right.
But
No, I like that a lot, actually, because, and not that the cast would like metagame and go like get all the most powerful people to come, fight for them, but within the world, within character, it makes sense if Keyleth was at 100%, like, go get her. Like, they need all the help they can get. So I like that kind of pulls her off the table for now, and I think she'll have her own machinations, whether we see that in a one shot or not. Be it Vax or just be it whatever, is one of the most powerful, influential people in the world. She kind of has her own stuff to deal with rather than go help Bell's Hells personally. Right. So yeah, I like that a lot. That is kind of a reason why she's not able to do that.
Okay, what else? What else from this episode?
Let me look through a couple things. I definitely have some stuff.
Deanna's communion was cool.
Yeah, that is one thing I wanted to talk about. So we can just, let's go ahead and talk about that. Which that, and then kind of around that as a whole, something we've talked about a bunch is the whole question of, are the gods worth saving? Let's just put it that way. Which I think has been a really interesting philosophical debate throughout the campaign. And again, could be leading towards all sorts of resets. We've talked about it.
Well, here's the deal. It brings me back to my point that the gods suck. They've never done anything good in any of the campaigns. And no, I'm just kidding.
I really liked the moment with Deanna, and I like that was a great moment, and I liked that she asked those questions. But I don't think it's like I don't think it's necessarily like as telling as some people have made it out to be. I think almost any god in this world, any prime deity, I should say, would have had to answer those questions the same way. Like, I don't think the Dawn Father is.
My bad.
Yeah, because the question about like, have any of your followers like knowingly perpetrated harm or whatever, like that's such a gray question, and these gods aren't ones that fully, like, they don't have
they're not like pure. I can't even think of the word, like holistically pure. Like, it's kind of ends justify the means a little bit.
I think that's what it is. And not even like the Dawn Father, I think especially is supposed to be like one of the prime deities that like is, holy and justice and everything. So I know some people were like, I don't know. I just don't think that like it's fair to necessarily draw conclusions from those questions because one, this is like it's war. Like everything is on the table here. Like like the whole world could end theoretically. So like at some point, even if you are a good guy, like sometimes blood's gonna have to be shed, things are gonna have to be done. Just like Bell's Hells have killed a ton of people this campaign, but we wouldn't say that they're evil, you know. And sometimes, I mean, there's definitely some instances where maybe they have done some stuff that's messed up, but I don't know. My point is, one, sometimes, you know, maybe you do have to get in the dirt a little bit, but even beyond that, the Dawnfather doesn't like holistically control his followers. You
Yeah.
know, like even if
Yeah.
if members of the Dawnfather paladins or whatever have done some bad stuff, that doesn't necessarily make the Dawnfather himself culpable.
Yeah.
Um, because
Yeah. And
they're not omnipotent. You know.
sure. I did feel a little bit of a awkwardness around the question. I love the question, are you worth saving? Like you could feel the energy at the table.
Yeah.
But I was like, man, Deanna, you're a bit ballsy. I mean, didn't the
Yeah.
Dawnfather revive you? Like bring
Right.
you back
Yeah.
from the dead? Like,
Yeah.
it's very much like bite the hand that feeds you kind of moment. I'm actually curious how Oram is lining up with all this because he's been the most resolute, like, yes, the gods are worth saving. And it does feel like in the last few episodes, you put out a video on this, on like how Oram's changed in this most recent arc. Um, you know, I keep thinking of like Captain America being like, we don't trade lives. And then like him getting to the point where being like, sometimes it's worth it. He never actually
Hmm.
says that, but it's kind of what I ascribe it to a little bit
Yeah.
of, it seems like Oram has faltered a bit or doesn't seem as confident, I guess is a better way to put it. And I'm honestly just really curious, like what threads is this group still holding on to that keeps them from going like full blown, yeah, let's come on, Predathos. Like, let's get rid of these people. But because it was very interesting before the kind of internal party controversy of Oram being like, we're pro God, Fern, kill Imogen if you have to. If she tries to
Yeah.
go join up with their mom. Now it feels a little bit more unstable. And I'm very curious like where it goes from here.
Yeah, same. And just for the record, I'm not like over here trying to say all the gods are great and this is ridiculous. I just feel like there's been a lot of conversation about like, yeah, maybe Predathos is right. And I think that's kind of not that it has to be a black and white to the too far ends of the spectrum like that, but I just think I just no way they land on let's just let this happen. You know, I I think these are very interesting discussions to have, and they even make sense to have given with all that's going on in the world. But I would just be very, very surprised if they somehow landed on that side of things. Given especially what you just said about Oram, kind of regardless of the god's place in it, is that he wants revenge for what these people did who represent that cause. Um,
Yeah, it's kind of not unlike some of the conversations from Diablo 4, where, sorry for spoilers, guys, just very brief. People being like, why are we fighting against Lilith? Like, doesn't she want to like save Sanctuary? And then, like, I was like some Reddit thread, and then all the comments were like, yeah, well, do you not remember like the cutscene where like the dude was like brutally beat to death? Or the other cutscene where like the wolves were like eating the person alive? Like, this isn't like, great job, Lilith. Like, they're like sacrificing thousands of people or whatever. And getting to the point, I agree with you in that I doubt they get to the point of like, all right, Ludinus, let's do it.
yeah,
Knowing the bad stuff that Ludinus and co have presumably done to bring us to this point.
right.
So,
Right, with you. And again, that being said, I don't think that that means the prime deities are infallible. I think there's a really interesting kind of story to unfold there with maybe they're not as righteous as we think, but that doesn't mean that that's still not the side that needs to be taken right now. And that doesn't mean that they haven't done good things too, but maybe they are
yeah.
flawed, you know. Um
Yeah.
but and one final thing here is that we do now have F.C.G. that's kind of gonna, I would imagine, be like the spearhead to staying on that track due to his personal
Right.
relationship with the Changebringer now.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so I'm glad that we have that perspective in the group for
No.
future discussions that happen on this front. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting, and I don't blame the Dawn Father for shunting her out at the end there. Um, Another thing I wanted to touch on, as I'm reading my notes, is the most recent four-sided dive. By the way, you should totally watch it. It was really good.
For once in my life, I watched a little tiny
Oh,
bit
you
of it.
did?
Just very brief. I didn't realize that the woman that I've seen on like some Twitter content, that she was one of the people like setting up the show. I can't think of her name.
Danny?
Maybe Danny.
Danny Carr? She's the lore
I don't know.
keeper.
I don't know. I don't
Okay.
know. I just started watching with Campaign 3. I don't know any of these outside people.
It's
But you mentioned
probably
Lore
Danny.
Keeper. You mentioned Lore Keeper. The content I'm thinking of is there was some content around Ruidus that came out right before the Apogee Solstice,
Hmm.
and I was like, oh, this person's kind of fun.
I think that
And
was Danny.
it was a woman doing like like a sort of like, yeah, it was like a lore
Yeah,
thing.
it was her then for sure.
Okay, and it was the same person in Four Sided Dive. So um, okay, cool. Sorry
Yeah.
guys for some of our like tried and true Critical Role people are like, what is wrong with you, dude? Like, you know anything? Anyway, all I was trying to say was I liked her. Okay,
Yeah.
all I
Yeah,
wanted to
Danny's
do.
great.
So
Yeah,
anyhow,
she's great. But yeah, Four-Sided Dive was really good. I liked this episode in particular because they, for like the first hour, they just talked, which they usually have like specific questions and like bits and segments to the show, which aren't bad, but like me personally, I much prefer just like the organic players like talking and enjoying talking about the game. But some interesting things that came up. Utkarsh talked a bit about his whole arc, and he did say that in his mind, like there was a plausible redemption, which is something you and I talked about in our last episode. And I won't go over it here. Watch the episode, you guys, if you haven't, to hear it from the man himself. But I just thought it was interesting that was on the table. And but he did say, I really wanted to cast Vitriolic Sphere, so I think that was always going to win out. Um, and he mentioned that it was
and
basically. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, just to pause it for a second. There was too much ironic things that happened in hindsight that kept redemption from happening. Notably, and you did a great job in your YouTube video on it, but I saw some Reddit comments too. The bodies coming out of the hole, but then those bodies being the whole like I don't like it, like
Yeah.
that whole thing. Like there were too many things that you kind of cringe isn't the right word, but like in his shoes, you're just like, that probably
Yeah.
like these people suck. So
For sure.
anyway,
Uh,
continue though.
he he just mentioned that it was basically either going to be like at the very start or the end where he like played his card. So I just thought it was interesting that he was even considering it like right at the beginning. Like I wonder what would have happened. I mean, he clearly wasn't going to kill all of them, so I imagine he just would have died and Utkarsh would have walked off set like 30 minutes after entering. But
What was that guy's name again? He's already off the show.
but yeah, I just thought that was interesting. And then Emily shared a lot of really fun stuff, which just again to hit the highlights here. Apparently they were talking, all three of them, Emily, Amy, and Utkarsh. I guess like kind of got together, maybe had a few conversations, knowing they would all be guests. And one idea they had was that they would all be triplets, with two of them being identical and one not. I thought that would have been hilarious.
Yeah.
Um,
There was a really good conversation about Utkarsh and just guest characters in general on Reddit. And I apologize, I can't source the person because I read it in passing. But I meant to mention it to you, but it was basically the problem with guest characters in that when someone like Utkarsh comes on, who is, and not unlike Erika Ishii, who came on, there's this interesting dynamic of you want the guest character to feel welcome and like, yeah, welcome to the table and whatever. and it's sort of like is in friction with also like your character's actual sense of um insight, I
Yeah.
guess. And how it's this weird's not the right word, but the person was basically saying like the party is forever at a disadvantage because to be suspicious and questioning from the get-go in a way kind of harms the welcoming of that person to the
Yeah.
table.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was kind of an interesting, and again, I apologize, I can't give credit to that person, but just thought it was a really interesting insight.
Yeah, I like that. And they didn't talk about that specifically, but the guests did talk about how like especially for Emily and Utkarsh, I think, who were this is their first time on Critical Role, were like real excited and like, like this is about to be so much fun, but they're thrust into this like super dark scenario where like all the characters are like really like, like on their wits end. So they said it was funny, like looking at each other and like giggling, and then being like, "Oh gosh, this is like a serious moment." Um, and then Emily again, it was so interesting to get like her insight into why she did certain things because this was our first exposure to Emily Axford, but her legend precedes her, and she's great, and like a lot of thought goes into what she did. And I just thought it was interesting that she landed on Prism. She said she got to like down to two final like potential characters, and she landed on Prism because she wanted to be like a source of knowledge for the group. Like she wanted to have high int, high religion, high intelligence, or whatever wisdom, I guess. Um, and so she crafted her character like to have those stats, and like that's how she ended up with like the Cobalt Soul, like studious person. And I was like, man, that's such an
Mhm.
interesting way to tackle that. Is first to be like of service to the rest of the cast, to be like, okay, I want to be good at these things because this is what they're gonna need to get through
Yeah.
this. Um, and then the other character she was gonna play was gonna be a paladin of a betrayer god, and the she
That would
said
have been interesting.
yeah, she said she wanted like the zaniest betrayer god, and so she said that Matt gave her it would have been Vesh, which this won't mean that much to you, but having seen Legend of Vox Machina, Cash,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
that's his that's the deity and also like his wife that he gets his powers from. Um
Okay.
so I just thought I love Prism and I'm glad we got what we got, but I'm just so curious what that character would have been like.
Very curious. Yeah. Yeah. That would have been really interesting. And would have been an interesting dynamic, I think, with Orem. Um,
Yeah.
and I will say, I forgot to mention in the recap, but I love Emily was just great, but I loved the detail of when FCG is like kind of not threatening her, but is like, you need to take care of Frida. And then Emily's like, as long as you take care of my best friend, Orem.
Yes.
Who we had a real connection with, and the other cast members who were like, "We went through
What the
stuff."
heck?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm working on some a video around that I thought was really funny. But
That will be good.
anyway,
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up too, which I when I was watching the episode, I was gonna bring it up, and then in Foresight of Dive, this is brought up, so I can kind of shine some new light on it. But at the time, I was like, I can't believe she didn't say Ashton, because I felt like her and Ashton were kind of having like these flirty vibes, and I could tell that. I mean, they made a kind of a joke of it at the table, but I feel like I could tell Ashton was kind of hurt by that, and Laudna obviously was too. Um, but then in the Foresight of Dive, this thing got brought up, and Emily said that her thought process there was what would be the funniest answer. And so she said Orem because she knew that Orem would like make the least sense, but
yeah,
also Orem would be the one person that like wouldn't care if she hadn't have said him. And so I
yeah,
just thought,
yeah.
okay, that's really funny that that's why she did that. And there wasn't like some act like,
But this is why I love Emily and why like I really want to see more with her is the moment happened so fast of FCG sort of charging her to protect Frida, and there was a roll, I think, and I think Prism had a natural one,
mhm.
and then Prism flipped it and said, you take care of my best friend Orem. Like the conversation was only like 8 seconds. And
Yeah.
so the fact that she processed all that and then like so witty, like fired that back. And it was a genuinely funny moment at the table when it happened. So, um,
100%.
I guess that's why Brennan says, she was.
Oh, I lost you.
Or did I freeze?
Oh, I think you froze, but you're back now.
Oh, okay.
You were saying Brennan said, and then it froze.
Oh, I said it, and then you didn't do anything, and I was like, I think he said that. I didn't know you were frozen. Oh, Brennan just saying like he loved Emily Axford, and she was brought here to kill him as like a DM.
That's
So
hilarious.
anyway,
Oh, and speaking of, one other interesting thing that she mentioned in the Four-Sided Dive was, during the episode when they're filling each other in on what happened to each of them, Prism is the kind of one that says, I killed Border, like I punched him to death.
yes,
Um, which I thought was, clearly Laudna is kind of truly the one that ended his life. But so I thought that was interesting. But she shed some light on it in Four-Sided Dive, saying that she did that to protect Laudna because she didn't know if like Laudna would want people to know that. So she kind of like went out in front and said that, and then it's going to be up to Laudna to kind of like truly fill them in if she wants to.
and again, this is why Emily Axford is so freaking amazing because she has now what could have been a moment that was uh, weaker if it just got like plopped out there in the middle of this tavern.
Yeah,
Now she has set it up to be this really meaningful moment, especially between Laudna and Imogen.
agreed.
Uh, so she's amazing.
Yeah, she
So
really is. She's great. Um, let's see. I I think that's the big things I wanted to talk about. I feel like I'm forgetting something though, but I'll quickly look through my notes again. But
all I was gonna say was when I was thinking about this episode over the last week, I was like, man, our episode's gonna be so short because there's not much to talk about. And then here we are with, frickin' forever episode again.
yeah,
So if you guys are still hanging in with us, I appreciate it. I would just love, I say this every episode, I'd love to know what you guys thought about the episode and some of the things that jumped out to you guys, especially on some of the conversation points we had. But anything else coming to mind, Will?
um, not really. Just a couple of
Oh,
things. Go ahead.
I did have one. The Night of Ascension
That was one of the things I was about to quickly bring up. Yeah,
that Prism invited Laudna to join her in the Shadowfell with. Was this a made up thing or is this an actual thing?
it never been mentioned before, but I think it's
That's
a real
really
like I think
cool.
it's a real thing though. Like I don't think that. Um, but yeah, I thought that was interesting that the
Yeah.
Shadowfell celebrates the night the matron ascended. Um, yeah, I'm curious to know what
Which was she from? She wasn't from the Shadowfell, right?
she was.
She was. Okay. You
At
talking about
least,
Prism or the matron?
oh, I thought you were talking about Prism.
No, I'm talking about the matron.
I don't think so, but I don't know.
Okay.
She at least like
But isn't
she at least like existed on the prime material plane because we know she was like a powerful wizard during the age of Arcanum, but that doesn't preclude her from like being from the Shadowfell originally, I suppose. But
and
the
isn't
matron's
is
like dominion is the Shadowfell, so like that's the connection, like the
yeah,
godly
right.
dominion. But yeah,
Yeah. No, I loved that little lore drop
yeah,
there.
me too. And
So
then this, we don't need to spend a long time talking about it, but one thing I have in my notes that I did want to bring up at least was um the people getting shunted around. Um it seems we found out that, at least according to that messenger gnome, which he doesn't know everything, but he didn't say that anyone around here got teleported away.
it didn't seem like it.
Which means that it seemingly only happened near Nexus points, because it did happen in Hearthdell,
Okay, that makes sense.
and
I
then it
was trying to
happened at
like,
the excavation point,
yeah, I
obviously.
was trying to connect those as to why it didn't seem to happen in Dressar, but it did in Hearthdell, which is presumably farther. It is farther, separate continent. Yes, the Nexus point that makes a lot of sense actually.
So
And they're being,
that's
I was
go
gonna say,
ahead.
and they're being 23. I think was also a
23
neat little.
like mapped ones.
Right, right.
Um,
I was kind of curious about that too.
yeah. So I
Oh, oh, sorry.
no.
Go ahead. I had a totally different thing I wanted to ask you about, but
Okay, well, the last little point on that was I was going to say the Nexus points make sense to me a lot. The only thing that then doesn't is Denise. But at that point, it's just like this is a guest character. We have to get them there, and so maybe
yeah,
that's just kind of hand waved away. But
yeah, I like
that's like the
that.
one foil.
Yeah. Okay. I have something that we haven't talked about that isn't even about this episode. But before I know we're getting to the end, but I, I did that YouTube video on Ashton's dad on F.
Mm, mm-hmm.
and I realized there was a detail that we didn't talk about
Pray
from the
tell.
previous episode. So when Matt is giving Ashton the explanation of this town in that event, Hevestro talks about how Efterin, there was an artifact that was like the central source of his power.
Mm.
And I missed that. I missed that line, or I didn't realize it. But it got me thinking, what is this artifact? What is this item that Efterin had that was apparently like a central conduit of his power? And we also know there was a gate of some kind back from What Dreams May Come, that episode where Ashton had like the flashback. There's a
Yeah.
gate that they're standing in front of. And this is like always I have like those crackpot theories. Where my mind went to was we know there are vestiges of divergence. We're
Right.
60 episodes deep. We haven't seen or heard of one. I'm not saying this is a vestige of divergence, though it could be. Though I did wonder though, could it be something just like there's the vestiges of divergence for the deities? Could there also be something of similar power that are leftover artifacts of the primordial titans? And this is what Efterin, it's what Efterin came across. The other thing that's another total crackpot out there theory is it seems like Ludinus has been covering some source of power. Like there's things that haven't lined up yet of like how like we've thought maybe does he have like these beacons that he's been harnessing, but could it be there's something else that he's using? Because we know in his notes he talked about the Titans. And then the last detail being he left this amazing staff that Imogen has in Malesmere. Why did he never go back to retrieve it? Could it be that he has since acquired something much more powerful that he's utilizing that's anti-God and as of primordial energy? Okay, that's my like 5-minute crackpot Pepe Sylvia ramble. So that I just wanted to throw it out there before
Yeah.
we wrap up.
I mean, I could see it. I could totally see it. I mean, the artifact uh part kind of passed by me too with Efterin. So, I mean that checks out to me like some sort of piece of a Titan, or just like something to that effect that was like the source of whatever they were trying to do. Makes a lot of sense. And I I'm with you there. I don't know. I'm less on board with like Ludinus necessarily utilizing it as well, just because we know he is using a beacon because that was part of the
True.
Malleus key,
Yes, he
and
is. Yeah.
also Vax. But you bring up a good point about like the staff and also the vest that was like not
Right.
confirmed, but seemingly what was giving him like eternal youth, and he left that behind too. So like, did he find some new way to do that? So and maybe it is this as well. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
I forgot about the vest too. Like I'm curious to see if that comes up soon as well.
I mean, Bell's Hells has it, right? I think
Right. Yeah.
so.
Yeah. For
I'd
sure.
love to hear what Morgan and the Nightmare King have to say about that, since he was like specifically like
Targeting Faye.
eating like Fey things. Yeah, I mean, I would love. I don't really see it happening, but I would love for them to like go
Not
to the Feywild and talk to
not
those two.
unlike Evatherir, the Taker, who was consuming essences
Yeah,
and was from the Fae. So
right,
surely
right.
that'd be a stretch to connect that in some way, but I don't know. I think it's an interesting detail.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
one this not related to this, but it's like
I
one.
love all these like little details that it's
But
because we've been
wait,
cutting so much content that we've been like, oh my gosh, like anyway, what are you gonna say?
on the whole gods conversation, we're talking about the Dawn Father and like, getting your hands dirty sometimes. I I'm not saying what was going on in Hearthdale was cool, but I also don't think it was as bad as kind of they were making it out to be.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact words, but like when they were describing it to the other half of the party, they were saying like they had subjugated this town, and like that wasn't the case. Like
It really wasn't. Yeah.
they like it was like a big temple kind of out of nowhere, and they had kind of like crowded themselves in, but like it wasn't like martial law or like you must convert. And even some of the townsfolk like willingly converted and worked for
Yeah.
them. Um,
Right.
and if it's next to a nexus point, so there's kind of like, I'm not saying this is the motive, but that's at least like a plausible motive for them to have come in to like keep an eye on this area. And they weren't like overtly evil from what we saw. It was like, yeah, they were gonna like uh, imprison the crew after they came up and Orm gave his speech or whatever. But anyway, all that to
Well, we
say
we were
is
gonna
that
take them to Vasselheim to corroborate the story. It
right,
wasn't even so much like you're going to jail, straight to jail.
right.
But, and then even I guess the strongest strike against them would be the taxing of the town, which I think was even phrased as tithing, like collecting
Yeah, it
tithes.
was. And so we don't know if that was just like a normal willingly given tithe or if there
Yeah.
was some sort of like coercion. But from like what we've seen, it didn't seem to be that type of relationship. And
Yeah.
finally, the person at the head of like causing this usurp against the church was Abadina, who we know is like Team Primordial's team this. So like she has very like personal reasons to like want this dispute. And not
And
only that, we know she's
former
a
cult leader. Yeah.
former cult
Cult
member. So like
member, yeah.
she could be radicalized. So and
Definitely
again,
in a
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, not saying that like Dawn Father and the temple did nothing wrong. It's just not
Yeah.
as like black and white as like the temple were definitely the evil people. I don't think that's the case
Definitely,
at all.
yeah, definitely in hindsight, when you were like just purely look at the context and like remove everything else, it definite vibes of like someone's first day on the job, like at this temple, like, hey, I'm a guard, it's great, and then gets like brutally murdered by like an invasion. It's
After
like, wait,
diarrheaing themselves.
yeah, I mean, for sure. You think back and definitely what how it was positioned to Deanna, who then went to the Dawn Father and was like, what's going on?
Yeah,
It definitely was a little bit of bias.
for sure.
Which
Which isn't her fault because that's how it was
yeah,
presented to her. Which
yeah.
then back to the question. Yeah, yeah.
It's the lies you tell yourself to, legitimize the really awful thing. They sacked a temple of the Dawn Father
Killed an
and
angel.
killed an angel. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I will say one last. Sorry, these guys. This episode's getting so long. But it just made me think of these little tiny details. I saw a really cool Reddit post about Bordor when he kills the angel, and the angel looks at him with pity. And the Reddit post was basically saying like, I took it to be like pity on the group as a whole, but the Reddit post was essentially saying like, perhaps he's looking at Bordor specifically with pity, knowing who Bordor really is and everything that um, has brought Bordor to this moment. Um, Not unlike a Jacob and Ben moment in Lost.
Oh,
I went
great
there.
show.
Hmm.
Mm, delicious.
Okay, I think we're finally done.
All right. I
Right?
think so.
And one more thing. Yeah. Whew, man. Great episode. Like I said, I feel like there wasn't much to talk about. And then once we started going, I was like, ooh, yeah, we need to talk about that. And it makes me jazzed for tonight, too.
Yeah,
I'm
man.
sorry, guys, we've been getting these out so late. It's just life and having such a busy schedule. But we definitely want to record them earlier in the week. We just haven't been able to recently. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else?
just a little thumbnail.
Just a little thumb easy. Alrighty. Just how about like reunited, like just happy.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Beautiful. And
Right.
y'all, as always, I mentioned it at the start, but watch party tonight in the Discord. You should join us. And that's all I got.
That's it. See you guys later.
Bye, y'all.